Welcome back to HOA. Karen Gets Denied. She wanted a scapegoat, and I brought a timeline. Melanie Brooks waved a torn shipping label in my face and screamed that the label proved I handled it. "You are going to correct this today," she yelled, jabbing her finger at my chest. I stood on my front porch in Copper Creek Estates, Portland, Oregon, holding my phone in one hand and staring at this woman who controlled the social committee for our homeowners association. She had just printed an instant violation notice on cheap HOA letterhead and told me the accusation was already on record. I work remotely as a customer support lead, and I had taken an early lunch to grab a package from my doorstep. Now I was being accused of forcing open the package locker door and stealing someone else's delivery. "I did not touch the locker," I said. "My package was on my porch." Melanie held up the torn label again. "This is your fault. You act suspicious. You are always watching the mail carrier. I have 3 neighbors who will sign complaints." "The locker was already ajar when I walked past it yesterday," I said. "I did not open it. I did not take anything." "I do not need proof. I have paperwork and vibes," Melanie said. She tapped the clipboard. "The board will hear about this. Guest parking and visitor access are suspended until you clear this up. That is effective immediately." My chest tightened. I needed visitor access. My partner was flying in next week and would need a guest pass to park. I also had a work colleague coming for a project review. If Melanie blocked access, I would have to shuttle people from off-site lots or pay for ride shares. I tried to keep my voice even. "You cannot suspend access without a hearing. The rules say you need a formal complaint first." "I do not make the rules, I enforce them," Melanie said. She turned and walked down my driveway, calling over her shoulder. "Fix it by end of day or the tow company gets a call." I stood there shaking. A regional supervisor from the management company was only in town today, and this was my one chance to get eyes on the file. If I missed that window, I would be stuck dealing with the local staff who already sided with Melanie on everything. I pulled out my phone and texted my partner. "HOA nightmare. Accused of stealing a package. Need to clear this fast." I went inside and pulled up the HOA portal on my laptop. Copper Creek Estates had a reputation for aggressive enforcement. The neighborhood was a planned community with a central clubhouse and constant patrols by private security. Melanie used her social committee role to weaponize every rule. She had gotten 3 families fined for trash can placement last month. She had tried to ban holiday decorations past January 2nd. Now she was coming after me for a theft I did not commit. I opened my email and found the automatic notice from the management company. Violation notice. Unauthorized access to common property. Effective immediately, guest parking privileges are suspended pending investigation. A mesh evidence tote is being held at the clubhouse for review. Preliminary complaint forms are attached. I clicked the attachment. 2 identical complaint forms popped up. Both filled out in the same handwriting. Both dated today. Both signed by neighbors I barely knew. The forms were identical down to the template, the spacing, the header font. I zoomed in. Same pen color, same loops on the capital letters. Melanie had filled them out herself. I screenshotted the forms and saved them. Then I called the management office. A receptionist picked up. "Copper Creek Management, this is Dana." "I need to speak to the regional supervisor," I said. "I am a homeowner and I have a false complaint on file. I need it corrected today." Dana paused. "The supervisor is in meetings until 3. You can leave a message." "I will be there at 3, I said. "I need this handled in person." I hung up and checked the time. It was just past noon. I had 3 hours to gather proof. I grabbed my keys and headed out to the package locker cluster near the mailboxes. The locker door was still ajar, held open by a small jammed hinge. I took a photo of the door, then another of the hinge. No sign of forced entry. No scratches. No damage. Just a busted hinge that anyone could see. I walked back toward my unit and spotted my neighbor Tom trimming hedges in his front yard. Tom was retired and home most days. He had a clear view of the mailbox cluster from his porch. I waved. "Hey Tom, did you see anyone messing with the package locker yesterday?" Tom looked up. Yeah, Melanie was over there for a while. She had a key ring and was pulling stuff out of the lockers. I thought she was doing maintenance or something. Did she take anything? Tom shrugged. She had a shopping bag. I figured it was HOA supplies. I asked Tom if he would be willing to write down what he saw. He hesitated. Melanie is pretty aggressive. I do not want to get pulled into HOA drama. I get it, I said, but she is accusing me of something I did not do, and she is already threatening to tow my guests. If I do not clear this today, I am stuck with fees and access loss. Tom sighed. Okay, I will write it down, but I am not going to a hearing. I thanked him and headed back inside. By 1 in the afternoon, I had 3 pieces of evidence: the screenshot of the identical complaint forms, the photos of the undamaged locker door, and Tom's written statement. I needed more. I opened the HOA portal again and clicked through to the access log. Copper Creek had electronic gate entry tracking. Every time someone used a key fob or access code, it logged the time and user ID. I scrolled back to yesterday. My entry was logged at 9 in the morning when I left for groceries, and again at 11 when I returned. Melanie's entry was logged at 2 in the afternoon, right around the time Tom saw her at the lockers. I took another screenshot. At 2:30, I drove to the clubhouse. The management office was a small suite attached to the community center. I walked in and found Dana at the front desk. The regional supervisor is running late, she said. Should be here by 3:15. I will wait, I said. I sat down in the lobby and pulled out my phone. A few other homeowners were waiting for appointments. One woman was arguing with Dana about a late fee. Another guy was asking about pool access. I kept my head down and reviewed my evidence folder. At 3:20, a man in a suit walked in and introduced himself as Greg, the regional supervisor. Dana pointed at me. He has a complaint to file. Greg waved me into a small conference room. I followed and set my phone on the table. I started with the accusation. Melanie Brooks printed a violation notice this morning, accusing me of forcing the package locker and stealing a delivery. She suspended my guest parking without a hearing. I did not do it. Greg frowned. Did she file a formal complaint? She filed 2, I said. I pulled up the screenshot of the identical forms. Same handwriting. Same template. Same date. She filled them out herself and forged neighbor signatures. Greg leaned forward and studied the screen. That is a problem. I showed him the locker photos next. No forced entry. The hinge is jammed. Anyone could open it. Then I showed him Tom's written statement. My neighbor saw Melanie at the lockers yesterday with a key ring and a shopping bag. Then I pulled up the access log screenshot. Melanie entered the property at 2 in the afternoon. I was home by 11. The timeline does not match. Greg took notes. This is enough to pause the violation. I will pull the file and review the complaint. If the forms are fraudulent, we will issue a correction. I need more than a correction, I said. I need the guest access reinstated today. My partner is flying in next week and I need a pass. Greg nodded. I will authorize a temporary reinstatement pending review. But I need you to file a counter complaint in writing. Use the portal. I can do that, I said. What about Melanie? She is threatening to tow my guests and she is spreading accusations to vendors. Greg paused. If she is harassing homeowners, that is a separate issue. Document everything. If it continues, we can escalate to the board. I left the clubhouse feeling slightly better. Guest access was reinstated, at least temporarily. But Melanie was still out there, and I knew she would not let this go. I drove back to my unit and spent the next hour filing a formal counter-complaint through the portal. I attached all my evidence and wrote a short summary. By 5 in the evening, I hit submit. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from the clubhouse front desk. This is Dana. Melanie Brooks is requesting a meeting with you at the clubhouse today at noon to resolve the complaint. Please confirm. I texted back, I will be there. At noon, I walked into the clubhouse and found Melanie waiting in the lobby with her mesh evidence tote sitting on the chair next to her. She had a clipboard with color tabs sticking out, and she was flipping through pages with a smug expression. Dana was at the front desk, looking uncomfortable. Greg was standing near the conference room door, arms crossed. Melanie stood up when she saw me. "I want this handled today. You damaged HOA property and stole a delivery. I have witnesses." "You have forged complaints," I said. "I have proof." Melanie waved her clipboard. "I have 3 signed statements. You have excuses." Greg stepped forward. "Let us sit down and go through this. Both of you, in the conference room." We sat down at the table. Greg pulled out a printed copy of my counter-complaint. "I reviewed your evidence. The complaint forms are identical. The handwriting matches. The timestamps do not support the accusation. I am suspending the violation." Melanie slammed her hand on the table. "That is unacceptable. He is being singled out because he acts suspicious. He watches the mail carrier. He loiters near the lockers." "I have a doorbell camera," I said. "I can pull footage." Melanie leaned forward. "Then pull it. Right now." I opened my phone and pulled up the doorbell app. I scrolled back to yesterday morning and found the clip of the mail carrier delivering my package to my porch at 10:45. I turned the phone toward Greg. My package was delivered here. I did not go near the lockers. Greg watched the clip. "That supports your timeline." Melanie grabbed her clipboard and flipped to a tab section. "I have a vendor invoice here that shows missing supplies from the clubhouse storage closet. He has access to the clubhouse. He could have taken them." "I do not have clubhouse access," I said. "Only board members and committee chairs have keys." Melanie ignored me and turned to Greg. "I need you to revoke his access to all common areas until this is resolved." Greg shook his head. "I cannot do that without a board vote. Right now, the evidence supports his version." Melanie stood up. "Fine. I will take this to the board myself." She grabbed her mesh tote and stormed out. Greg looked at me. "Keep your evidence handy. If she escalates, you will need it." I left the clubhouse and drove home. That afternoon, I got a call from a local delivery vendor who worked with the HOA for bulk supply orders. The voice on the line was stiff. "This is Mark from Pacific Supply. I am calling to let you know we cannot process your requests anymore. The HOA has flagged your account." "What?" I said. "I have never placed an order with you." Mark hesitated. "We received a complaint that you have been disputing charges and harassing staff. We were told to block your account." "I have never contacted you," I said. "Who filed the complaint?" Mark paused. "Melanie Brooks. She is our main contact for Copper Creek." "She is lying," I said. "I am a homeowner. I have never placed an order or disputed anything. Can you check your records?" Mark said he would look into it and hung up. I sat down and tried to process what was happening. Melanie was poisoning vendors against me. She was escalating the accusations and spreading them outside the HOA. I needed to stop her before it got worse. I called my mail carrier, Luis, who had been delivering to Copper Creek for years. Luis picked up on the second ring. "Hey, what is up?" "Luis, I need a favor," I said. "You delivered a package to my porch yesterday morning, right?" "Yeah, around 10:45, Luis said. "Why?" "The HOA is accusing me of stealing from the package locker. They are saying I forced it open. Did you see anything unusual at the locker yesterday?" Luis was quiet for a moment. I saw Melanie messing with the lockers when I was finishing my route. She had a key ring and she was pulling stuff out. I thought she was doing maintenance. "Would you be willing to write that down?" I asked. "Sure," Luis said. "I will email you a statement." By evening, I had 4 pieces of evidence: the identical complaint forms, the locker photos, Tom's statement, Luis's statement, and the access log screenshot. I felt like I had enough to clear my name, but I still did not know where the stolen package was. I needed to find it. The next morning, I got a text from Tom. Melanie just knocked on my door and asked me to sign a new complaint form. She said you were harassing neighbors and she needed more statements. I told her no. I texted back. Did she say anything else? Tom replied, she said the board is meeting next week and she needs signatures by Friday. She is pressuring everyone on the block. I realized Melanie was escalating again. She was trying to build a case by collecting signatures in front of witnesses, even if she had to pressure people. I needed to confront her before the board meeting. I called the clubhouse and asked Dana when Melanie would be in next. Dana said Melanie had a social committee meeting scheduled for Thursday afternoon at 2. I marked my calendar. I would go to the clubhouse that day and force a confrontation in front of the committee. Thursday afternoon, I showed up at the clubhouse at 1:55. The social committee was setting up in the community room. Melanie was at the front of the room with her mesh tote on the table, organizing papers. A few other committee members were chatting near the coffee station. I walked in and stood near the door. Melanie looked up and her face went tight. You are not allowed in here. This is a common area, I said. I am allowed to observe. Melanie grabbed her clipboard and walked toward me. I told you to fix this. You did not. Now you are trespassing. I pulled out my phone. I have doorbell footage, access logs, and witness statements that prove I did not steal anything. You forged complaint forms. You poisoned a vendor. You are pressuring neighbors to sign false statements. I am not leaving until you admit it. Melanie raised her voice. You need to hand over the stolen item right now. In front of everyone. I do not have it, I said. You took it. One of the committee members, a woman named Rachel, stepped forward. What is going on? He stole a package and damaged the locker, Melanie said. I have signed complaints. I held up my phone. I have proof she forged the complaints. Same handwriting. Same template. She filled them out herself. Rachel looked at Melanie. Is that true? Melanie tried to wave it off. The forms are procedural. I assisted the neighbors with the paperwork. You forged signatures, I said. That is fraud. Rachel frowned. Melanie, if you filled out the forms yourself, that is a problem. Melanie grabbed a handheld radio from her mesh tote and held it up like she was calling dispatch. I am requesting security to remove a trespasser from the clubhouse. Repeat, trespasser in the community room. No one answered. The radio was not even on. Rachel and the other committee members stared. Melanie lowered the radio and her face went red. You are not security, Rachel said. You cannot call anyone. I can enforce policy, Melanie snapped. She turned to me. You are going to regret this. I stayed calm. I am filing a complaint with the management company and the board. You committed fraud. You harassed vendors. You suspended my access without a hearing. I have everything documented. Melanie tried to grab my phone. Give me that. I stepped back. You are not taking my phone. Rachel stepped between us. Melanie, stop. This is out of control. Melanie dropped the radio into her mesh tote and grabbed a stack of papers. She walked back to the table and started shuffling them aggressively. The meeting is over. Everyone leave. Rachel looked at me. I am sorry, I did not know about the forged forms. I will talk to the board. I nodded and left the clubhouse. That evening, I got a call from Greg. I heard about the incident today. Melanie filed a counter-complaint accusing you of harassment and trespassing. She is saying you disrupted a committee meeting. I was observing, I said. She tried to confiscate my phone. Greg sighed. This is escalating. I need you to submit everything you have in writing. I will present it to the board at the next meeting. When is the meeting? I asked. Next Tuesday, Greg said. I spent the weekend compiling a full evidence packet. I printed the screenshots, the witness statements, the doorbell footage stills, and the access log. I wrote a 2-page summary and attached it all to an email. Monday morning, I sent it to Greg and copied the board members. By Monday afternoon, I got a reply from the board president. We have reviewed your evidence. We are scheduling an emergency review of the complaint process. Melanie Brooks is being asked to step back from enforcement duties pending the review. That was progress, but I still needed to find the stolen package. I drove back to the clubhouse and asked Dana if I could review the storage closet logs. Dana hesitated. That is restricted. I need to see if anything is missing, I said. Melanie accused me of taking clubhouse supplies. If I can prove the supplies are still there, it clears me. Dana checked with Greg, and he authorized access. I followed Dana to the storage closet near the back of the clubhouse. She unlocked the door and stepped aside. I walked in and scanned the shelves, cleaning supplies, event decorations, folding chairs, and a stack of mesh totes. One of the totes was labeled Social Committee. I opened it and found a small box inside. The box had a torn shipping label with a name I did not recognize. I pulled out my phone and took a photo. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more real HOA drama and neighborhood revenge stories. Dana looked over my shoulder. That is not supposed to be here. This is the stolen package, I said. Melanie put it in the storage closet. Dana pulled out her phone and called Greg. He told her to lock the closet and wait. 20 minutes later, Greg arrived with a security escort. He opened the tote again and examined the box. This matches the description from the complaint. I need to document this and contact the homeowner who filed the original complaint. Greg took photos and wrote up an incident report. He asked me to stay while he called the homeowner. The homeowner confirmed the box was theirs and said they never authorized Melanie to handle it. Greg hung up and looked at me. This is theft. I am filing a report with the Portland Police Bureau. The next day, a deputy came to the clubhouse and took statements from Greg, Dana, and me. The deputy reviewed the evidence and wrote up an incident number. Melanie Brooks is being investigated for theft and fraud. You should receive a copy of the report in a few days. That afternoon, I got a call from Rachel. The board held an emergency session. Melanie is being removed from the social committee. She is also being required to communicate only in writing going forward. No more in-person enforcement. What about my complaint? I asked. Cleared, Rachel said. The violation is being removed from your file. Guest access is fully reinstated. The board is also issuing a policy clarification that blocks Melanie's favorite tactic. No more instant violation notices. Everything has to go through a formal hearing process now. I hung up and felt a wave of relief. The next morning, I got a text from Luis. I heard Melanie got busted. Good. She was always rude to me on my route. Tom texted me too. Glad you cleared it up. She knocked on my door again yesterday and I told her to leave. By the end of the week, Greg sent me a formal letter confirming the resolution. The complaint is closed. The violation has been removed. Guest access is reinstated. Melanie Brooks is no longer authorized to issue notices or conduct enforcement. A key log review proved that only leadership had access to the storage closet, and the timeline matched Melanie's entry logs. The HOA issued a policy clarification that blocks instant notices and requires a hearing for all violations. Melanie is required to communicate only in writing going forward. A police incident number was filed for the false report, and her intimidation stopped immediately. I printed the letter and filed it with my HOA documents. A few days later, I was leaving for work when I saw Melanie at the mailbox cluster. She was sorting mail and did not look up. I walked past without saying anything. As I reached my car, I heard her trying to open one of the package lockers. The door would not budge. She tugged harder. The door stayed jammed. She pulled out her phone and took a photo, then walked away. I realized she was documenting a maintenance issue, probably trying to file a complaint about the locker door. The funny part was that she had printed a deadline on one of her earlier violation notices, and the date on that notice contradicted her own timeline. She had insisted I fix the issue by end of day, but her printed date showed she had filed the notice 2 days after the locker was already broken. That mistake was now part of the formal record, and it made her look incompetent in front of the board. A week later, I was at the gate entry lane when I saw Melanie trying to enter. A gate staff worker stepped out of the kiosk and blocked her. I could not hear the conversation, but I saw Melanie waving her clipboard. The gate staff worker shook his head and pointed at a sign. Melanie argued for a minute, then turned around and drove off. I pulled up to the kiosk and the gate staff worker waved me through. She tried to say, "You cannot suspend access," he said. I told her only the board can do that. "Thanks," I said. I drove through and parked at my unit. That evening, I got an email from the board. The access log was reviewed and Melanie's entries were flagged. She had accessed the storage closet multiple times without authorization. The board voted to revoke her key access to all common areas except the clubhouse community room during scheduled meetings. The next Tuesday, I was at the clubhouse picking up a guest pass for my partner when I saw Melanie in the lobby. She was sitting in a chair with her mesh tote on her lap, waiting for someone. Dana was at the front desk and waved me over. "Your guest pass is ready." I picked up the pass and turned to leave. Melanie stood up and walked toward me. "This is not over." "Yes, it is," I said. "You got caught. You lied. You forged complaints. You stole a package and tried to frame me. The police have a report. The board revoked your access. It is over." Melanie opened her mouth to respond, but Dana cut her off. "Melanie, if you want to file a new complaint, you need to do it in writing. No more in-person enforcement." Melanie glared at Dana, then at me. She sat back down and pulled out her phone. I left the clubhouse and drove home. A month later, I was checking my mail when I saw Melanie at the clubhouse loading boxes into her car. Rachel walked up to me. "She is moving out." The board decided not to renew her committee appointment, and she decided to sell her unit. "Where is she going?" I asked. "Another HOA in Beaverton," Rachel said. "Good luck to them." I went back inside and pulled up the HOA portal. My violation file was empty. My guest access was fully active. The policy clarification was posted on the homepage. All enforcement actions must be approved by the board and preceded by a formal hearing. No instant notices. No suspensions without due process. I closed the laptop and looked out the window. The mailbox cluster was quiet. The package locker door was still ajar, but maintenance had finally scheduled a repair. Luis dropped off a package on my porch and waved. I waved back. The neighborhood felt normal again. A week later, I got a call from the homeowner who had filed the original stolen package complaint. "I wanted to thank you. Melanie tried to tell me you took my package, but I did not believe her. When the police found it in her storage tote, I knew she was lying. I am glad you cleared your name." "I appreciate that," I said. "It was a nightmare, but I had good evidence." The homeowner laughed. She tried the same thing on another neighbor last year, accused them of stealing holiday decorations. Turned out, she had them in her garage the whole time. I hung up and realized Melanie had a pattern. She stole things and blamed others to cover her tracks. The board had finally caught on, but it took months of complaints and a formal investigation. The key log review had been the final piece. It showed that Melanie was the only person with access to the storage closet on the day the package disappeared. She could not explain why her entry log matched the timeline, and she could not produce any other suspect. The access log was read out loud during the board review, and it pointed away from me completely. That moment had cleared my name and forced the board to act. I spent the next few weeks settling back into normal life. My partner flew in and used the guest pass without any issues. My work colleague visited and parked in guest parking. The HOA stopped sending me notices. Melanie moved out at the end of the month, and the social committee appointed a new chair. The new chair sent an email to all homeowners apologizing for the previous enforcement issues and promising a more transparent process going forward. I replied thanking them and moved on. The stolen package was returned to the original homeowner. The police incident number stayed on file as a public record. Melanie's intimidation stopped immediately, and the neighborhood went back to being quiet and boring. I kept all my evidence in a folder just in case, but I never needed it again. The board implemented the new policy, and enforcement complaints dropped by half. A few months later, I was at the clubhouse for a community event when Dana pulled me aside. I wanted to let you know, Melanie tried to come back last week to pick up some old committee files. I told her she needed written authorization from the board. She got angry and left. Thanks for backing me up, I said. Dana smiled. You were right the whole time. I should have pushed back harder when she first accused you. I appreciated that. The event went smoothly, and I left feeling like the neighborhood was finally stable again. The HOA was still a pain, but at least the enforcement process was fair now. No more instant notices. No more forged complaints. No more Melanie. Catch you next time, and I appreciate you hanging out with me today.